Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I, as always, am your host, Stephen Stark, and of course, joining me are Nessie and John, the regular co-hosts,
Hello.
back for more.
Hello.
Can't stay away. And this week
We try.
Yeah, at least that's what they tell me. But this week we're very happy to have a very special guest, first time on the channel. Please welcome HaxDogma. He is here.
Hey, everybody.
Last week when I mentioned we were doing WandaVision, several of you, I know Kate Bertinsky really comes to mind. They were like, you got to get Hax. And so I was like, okay. I mean, all I could do was ask, and he was game from the get-go. So
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for requesting me, guys. Thanks for the invite. That's so awesome. I love doing stuff like this.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun over here. We're a small community, but we're pretty tight knit, and so anybody that says this person is quality, they automatically says good things to me.
Feels good.
Yeah. So given that I didn't really even, I mean, I knew who you were, kind of like I knew your name, heard your name.
Yeah.
But as I said before we started the stream, YouTube's a big place.
Oh yeah.
And we work. And I play in 3 D&D games, and run the channel. It's tough to find time to find new creators, but I'm really happy to meet you. Can you tell us just a little bit about what you do and how you came into the fandom? We'll talk about actual WandaVision.
Yeah. So my channel started probably like 10 years ago. I made my first video like 10 plus years ago. Like 101 things to do at Walmart, and then the channel went dormant for until I guess 2016 when the first season of Westworld came out, and the first couple episodes I just loved talking about it. I just at work, I worked at Cisco at the time, and it was just me and all these tech guys, and we would all just talk about the show for hours. Like none of us wanted to work, we just wanted to talk about the show. And then we would come up with these theories, and then essentially I just wanted an extension of that. And Alt Shift X, I saw what he did with Game of Thrones and this like theory crafting community that he really built upon, and it was just magic. I loved his videos so much, and I've told him multiple times. But so I wanted that for Westworld, and from Westworld I moved on to Game of Thrones as well. Over to Watchmen, over to WandaVision, and just really any show that piques my interest, and I think has a lot of potential for for good storytelling, theories, Easter eggs, and stuff like that. I just love like really well developed shows, and that let us like dive into them deeper. So I would do YouTube. I'm also in the IT realm in my professional career, and also and doing my best to be a writer. I've self-published one book and currently working on another, and hopefully a screenplay for something in the world of Avatar as well.
Oh, funny you should say that.
Yes.
Aemy literally says ask Hax about Last Airbender.
Yes.
I assume you're a big fan of Last Airbender.
Very much so. And I actually, when Korra came out, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like when the movie came out, I had my head shaved in an arrow. Okay. Like there's a picture of it somewhere that I'll never show anybody. But yeah, it was a big thing for me. I love that show so very much. And Legends of Korra, I tried it when it first came out. Wasn't a big fan of it, but in the communities of Avatar now, it seems like Korra is something that's also really well accepted. So rewatching it, I just finished season 1 yesterday, the day before, and it was good. It was so good.
Look, I mean, I'll say this: season 2 is kind of weak for that show. The rest is great.
Really? Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Go ahead.
And I will say 2/3 of the rest of the panel is also big fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And the other third hasn't watched it yet.
Yeah, John hasn't had a chance to get into it
yet.
He's
not a fan yet.
Yeah, not a fan yet.
Right. But so that's cool, man. So you just jumped out there and started doing your thing really around Westworld, huh?
Yeah, really around Westworld and theory crafting. I really want to get more into Marvel at this point. I feel like Marvel has a lot of potential. I also feel like Avatar has a lot of potential. Tolkien as well.
Man.
I'm in this really, really weird spot where I just like want to make videos on everything, and that's not the best for channel growth because you're not really targeting a certain audience. But at the same time, there's stuff that I want to talk about, and hopefully others want to hear me talk about it.
That's been the approach for I think most of the three of us.
Yeah.
We are not trying to play to the algorithm.
Chaos.
We're doing the thing we want to do. And like last week we talked about, what was it? Batman Returns.
Yep.
We talk about The Expanse. Have you seen The Expanse, Hax?
I have not. So here's the thing. I've tried 4 times. I have legitimately tried 4 times and can't get past season 1. Like,
you've got to get past season 1, man.
I know, and everybody says the same thing. Yeah. Wait, say that again.
How far into season 1 are you getting?
So I will get to episode 4 or 5, like just enough to like understand like the first couple characters, the kind of the communities, the how gravity affects people, the drama of these, the Earth people versus the Belt people and Mars people. I may be making that last part up, but like I'll watch to the point. And here's how I knew that I've watched it or tried to watch it multiple times. I like started it maybe a year or 2 ago and was like, man, all of this looks so familiar. And my wife was watching as well, and she was like, yeah, I feel like we've watched this. And then like up to episode 5 or so was when like we started just like, or that was when we didn't recognize anything. But then we just stopped watching it. Like there wasn't a reason. It wasn't like we didn't like it. It was just that we had stopped watching it. And then again, it happened when I was recommended it, at the end of Westworld season, whatever, and tried it again. I was like, oh my God, we went through this already. And then again, dropped it just randomly. And again, now I have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
now, Stephen, everybody is welcome here. Okay.
Right.
Before you get going.
Okay. I promise I will not boot you off the screen. I've already decided you're never coming back.
I'm sorry. I'll accept that.
Man. It was a great run while you had it.
It was good. It was 7 minutes, so I'll take that. I need that.
Okay, so WandaVision, and it was Agatha All Along, and okay, so we're specifically talking about episodes 7 through 9, but given that this wraps up the whole season, we're going to be reaching back to the earlier stuff as well. But so guess first, Hax, how did you feel about the last 3 episodes just in general?
Yeah, loved them. Great television, great storytelling, compelling, and mysterious.
Okay,
I think those are my overall thoughts. Yeah,
that's a great encapsulation.
I will say with an asterisk of the finale could be better.
Okay, you and I are going to have a conversation about that.
Yes,
because I also think the finale could have been better. John, how about you?
Well, actually, I was incredibly impressed with the finale. But I will say that my one disappointment with in the final episodes, and I'm just getting this out of the way, is that I feel like I was teased by the Marvel Studios about a potential link up with X-Men, and they fooled me, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy about that. But putting that aside, I thought these 3 episodes were utterly masterful, and this is probably my favorite thing the MCU has ever done.
Wow.
That's really high praise. I know John is probably, for those of you that don't know, John is probably the least invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I believe he refers to it as fine overall.
But, if you want to be generous.
Yeah. Nessie.
Yes.
How'd you come away from WandaVision?
Well, I came away with like a better understanding of Wanda's character overall, and I'm really looking forward to see where her arc is going. How, it shows her creation, her backstory, even more than we already knew. We find the source of all the sitcom references. Oh, look at this. Everything that's been going on is like Wanda just dealing with trauma after trauma after trauma in her life. And then in the end, when she has this her final confrontation or what have you, is where she finally just accepts her power for what it is. She fully embraces it. Not just that, yes, she was, she has this connection with the Mind Stone and Vision, but also that she had the power all along inside her, that the Mind Stone just amplified and awakened. So it's actually truly hers, just with greater amplification. So it's, it's not that she's like a pawn to this power. It's her. She can possess it. So embracing that whole power arc was just, especially the last episode, was just wow,
Oh yeah, and for me, like the reveal that she was that she was a baby witch, right? Like she's always been a witch.
Always been a witch.
Yeah, even before the Mind Stone is amazing, because it shapes this magic in the series and in the MCU, and how magic works. Not just in relation to the Infinity Stones, but just like as Doctor Strange, or as the Ancient One describes it, it's like the source code, of the reality.
Right.
Where, you could call it programs, or you could call it spells, or the source code, and I really like the idea of that. And so for me, like I think it's really up for interpretation with like Wanda's big reveal there. But like I interpret that part as she's had that magic, the Mind Stone or something behind the Mind Stone unlocked it and showed her that vision of what she could be, like her in that sunken place, the next to die by touching the scepter. And it takes advantage of her, right? It shows her this being that she could become. She could become the Scarlet Witch, but the thing is, it shows her that image, but it doesn't show her what she would have to do to become that, like the loss and the people she would have to, all the steps in between A and B, like so I think that's ultimately like it. I wish that was revealed, because I feel like the parts of that are there, but at the end of it, she just becomes the Scarlet Witch, and at the end of it, she's still the person who enslaved 3,000 people, and then you have to come to your own moral justifications of that.
As you said when you were on Kyle's stream earlier, she's the bad guy of the series. She really is.
Yeah.
I mean, Agatha is showing up to take advantage of a bad situation, but it really is Wanda's fault. So, but I will say this, overall, I found the last 3 episodes to actually be the weakest of the series. Which is, I know,
of course you did.
I know it's the weirdest, and I was sold completely out on this series from the get-go. And now, you also have to understand, when I say they were the weakest, I'm saying they're 95s next to the 100s of the previous.
Okay, episode 8 was the strongest thing the MCU has ever done, but whatever,
Again,
that's how you feel.
But I will say, and I don't have anything specifically that I can point at to say this didn't work. That's not in the actual finale. Yeah. Your dads are fighting again. Sorry, kids. We don't usually like to do that in front of the kids, but occasionally it happens.
I will say in episode 7, the biggest issue that I had was the rover scene, where Monica goes headfirst into the. We meet the engineer, and then they just have the space rover laying around for her. That whole thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't Reed Richards like we were hoping. So.
Yeah, or Doom or anybody, but like more than just the theories being wrong, like the premise for what they were trying was just so weird. Like, one, the person who has no interaction with this thing is like, oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, sure. We've never even tested this thing. You should sail right through. And so she goes at 95 miles an hour. Well, I don't know how fast, but head first into this wall, and then it starts absorbing the car, and then it's like, oh man, this is behaving exactly as we've seen this behave every time. She freaks out. She jumps out of the car.
Well, the vehicle was according to Monica's specifications, so she was the brain behind it.
Well, that's the whole thing, though. Oh, sorry.
And the whole setup for that is for that joke of, sailing right through.
Yeah.
What happened to sailing right through? I mean, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And
You know,
but the other thing is, it's
the MacGuffin for Monica to just make that final trip back through.
Yeah,
when she
yeah.
goes, "Oh, I've got no choice now. I've got to go," and nobody's
So-
going.
I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off, and I'm gonna talk about the things that didn't work for me first, so I can just spend the rest of the stream loving on the stuff that I really did like, because there's actually a whole lot to like in
Fair.
these last 3 episodes. And
Yeah.
again, I'm saying everything before these 3 was an A+, and these 3s are just A's. So, don't get it twisted. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But there's really, I guess, two things that I came away going, eh. Well, one I just came away going, eh, and that is the visuals for the fight between Wanda and Agatha in the finale. There's just, we've had superheroes flying around shooting colored CGI at each other a whole lot, waving their hands and doing things. I'm like, it could have been better. Now, they gave us something that was really great in the Vision versus Vision fight, because there was all the phasing and then led to the philosophy conversation. That was really great. But again, it's a superhero story. There's going to be people flying around in the sky shooting colored CGI at each other. It is what it is. I thought we could have done something a little more interesting with those 2 magical characters. Okay, great. That's not that big a complaint. My real complaint is they should never have cast Evan Peters as Quicksilver if they were not going to pay it off. They made me feel dumb at the end of it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel dumb. I felt like
Damn,
Kevin Feige was dumb.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and maybe this is just the part of me that's like, all just hoping for the tiniest sliver of hope that wasn't just a dick joke. In the sense that if this is the MCU, if this is the multiverse, and what we're seeing is the Evan Peters equivalent of what that person would be if something didn't happen in his timeline, right? Like if X, Y, and Z didn't happen to make this reality exist, then Evan Peters would be Quicksilver. So this is like that person, Ralph Boner, which I also think might be the person in Witness Protection Program, but I'm not sure. But essentially, it's the MCU reality of what that person would be. Like in X-Men reality, he is Quicksilver, but in MCU reality, he's just a nobody. So I think if anything, it could point to that, but yeah, otherwise it's just a dick joke.
Well, we had speculated that Agatha's mystery husband that we never got to see was the one in Witness Protection, so could very well.
Among other theories, there was theories
among other multiple,
or Cthulhu,
all Mephisto, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I do want to address Stephen's 2 things. First of all, the Quicksilver thing, yeah, that annoys me. But on the other hand, being serious for a second, I have to say, like, you know what? I'm going to take this back in a second. But what I was going to say was that it works within the context of the story. But then you also have to think that this isn't in a vacuum. Everybody knows that's Quicksilver from the X-Men films. But that said, again, it does still work within the context of the story, which is why I think it's okay, even though it pisses me off. But as far as the visual thing, I'm going to, for the fight, I'm going to come right back and say that I think that every single big CGI fight action sequence in the MCU has been visually dull as hell.
What?
Sorry.
How?
So, I know.
How?
So I wasn't really let down by this, and I like the color usage and going with the motif of the Scarlet Witch, and then when the the symbols go up in the sky. I actually thought that was cool. But yeah, in general, I find the sort of CGI visuals for the MCU to be, if not dull, what's a better? No, I'm just gonna say dull. We'll go with that.
So I will say, with in terms of CGI in the finale, or how they could have made the fight scene better, I think that when they explored the idea of Wanda going into Agatha's memory and us seeing like the reanimated zombies, zombie witches, amazing. I love, yes, so good. There is so like, especially with them both being these powerful witches, there's so much more they could have done that wasn't just shoot
and
Wanda's
mental manipulation, that's like her signature move. It's the one she's practiced since she was first trained. And when she poofed kind of in behind, teleported however behind Agatha, and just like, oh yeah, I'm putting my little snaky red wiggly things in your head, just like Pietro wanted to know about. But that my magic man.
I do want to say one other thing. Another thing which actually made the action sequences, at least the last leg of them, work really well for me, was the visual of Wanda and her Scarlet Witch costume. That was just there we go. It was just so like good. Instantly iconic and gorgeous and also hopping onto that about why I think I was engaged with the action sequences, because I actually cared about the characters because of everything that's gone on through the course of the show, which is kind of a difference for me versus the MCU movies in general, where sometimes I care a little bit, but I usually not super invested. With this, I had become so invested by the story and the characters, what they were going through, and Wanda's grief and everything that she was emotionally going through. That's what made the action sequences work for me in this.
Again, one last note about
a lot of emotional journey for her too. We're seeing her try to go claim. I'm sorry, Hax. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible host or terrible guest.
No, what I was going to say is that the grief she experienced when she saw what they were. She just wanted her husband's body, and any widow who's ever had to go claim a body and they just want their loved one, it really hits home.
Yeah, and not only to be told no, but to be told that it's property. That's this thing that you care about is property, and it's not your property. Like this is something that we've assigned value to. No way that you can take it. Just what a heartbreaking moment.
And Hayward is such a dick.
Yeah.
Can we just agree? Hayward, he is the worst right now.
What was that meme? Hold on, I'm gonna find that meme that Anna posted that talks. Oh, maybe it wasn't in our Slack group. Anyway, you guys continue the conversation on this.
It's like, I know Wanda did a whole bunch of horrible stuff, and we can argue about, because she wasn't aware initially what she was doing, and there's that whole conversation. But you know what? At the end of the day, okay, she enslaved people, but Hayward was dick.
How could you possibly compare the two? Like Hayward at worst antagonizes her, and then lies, and he does break the Sokovia Accords, and the reason that he's ultimately arrested is maybe for firing a weapon at Monica, who clearly doesn't care, but but he does break the Sokovia Accords in the sense that specifically he cannot reanimate Vision, and or any sentient being, I think, or any artificial intelligence, or I forget how it's worded, but so he does that.
The synthezoids.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, there's him doing that, and then there's enslaving 3,000 people. Like,
but nothing overcomes being an asshole.
Yeah, but that's true. That's true. And also, how do you not like the CGI in Endgame when Captain Rogers goes assemble, and then all of these, I mean, dude, it's so good.
Return of the King did it better.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Dude, don't start with John and Lord of the Rings. Read his hat.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Just, I mean, you want to, John will gladly talk about Lord of the Rings anytime you want.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to finish off my criticism from before about the CGI. Their two witches, I thought they could do more than just wave their hands and have the energy smoke go between them and push back and forth. Like, I think we could have seen, I think of the things that Doctor Strange did when he fought against Thanos in Infinity War.
That's
and
a
I'm
great
like,
point.
why can't why can't this fight be more like that? So,
or how they were fighting in Doctor Strange, where the other people who could bend the reality around them or what have you, like the buildings folding, manipulating reality, like you said.
I would have loved to have seen something more like that, but again, it's on a TV budget, so their CG budget is not as high, and they did have a parallel fight between the visions going that I thought worked really, really well. So
all right. So I think if they had done more of like an internal battle where they could like pick whatever landscape they're fighting on, or it flips through, one another's reality. Yeah, that just like how they had how Wanda would change the settings or whatever, throughout the series. If, she's fighting, she just changes it to a something that is to her advantage or what have you. A battle of wills more than just like throwing energy bolt, like you said.
And again, I guess what kept me going through all these sequences were the dialogue exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm never thrilled by any of the MCU's action, it's like I guess I wasn't expecting it to meet a certain standard or anything, but I loved, like, as far as like the stuff with the visions, like the most interesting part of that was their back and forth conversation talking about which of them, like what part of them is necessary to be the real vision. And then the stuff with Agatha and Wanda, their back and forth, that was the interesting part to me, not like how the action was visualized in this way. It was the character interactions in those scenes.
Yeah,
I that was one of my biggest issues with Harry Potter, actually, is they were these powerful witches or warlocks or wizards, there we go, that so much magic exists, but the most powerful thing you could ever do is cast a little bolt of green stuff, right? Like, that was it. That was how you commit the worst sin humanly possible. Like, and so I love the idea. Like Doctor Strange, the comparison between them and Doctor Strange is exactly what it should have been. The bending of reality, the transversal of time and perception and stuff like that. We got a tiny taste of that, and I guess like a little bit of Wanda like throwing the car at one point, but then other than that, it's just shooting colored spells at each other. Like, that's it.
Bunch of Eldritch blast going on up there.
See, and just that's what I've found really so great about that scene. And sorry, I'm done dunking on the
all love from here on out. And I will circle back to the costume because I didn't get to say anything about it yet.
Yes,
there is only one complaint to be had about that costume, and it's that there's no actual Scarlet in the costume, but it looks fantastic, and it really reminds me of the Magneto costume.
Yes,
kind of merged with the traditional Scarlet Witch costume, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
We're gonna when conventions are a thing again, we're gonna see WandaVision cosplays.
Oh yeah,
epic.
When conventions are a thing again.
Never again.
Yeah.
I like the costume a lot. And also think that I don't know, like I like the whole crown coming together, and then we see the parallel with Agatha's mother also having that blue crown. It's just I like these idea of this idea of like these pinnacle magic users of each of these like branches of magic, and so I think there's still more to explore there. And of course, like defining magic, like in Doctor Strange, we get such a great breakdown of where their powers come from, but it's only a theory that it relates to Doctor Strange and how that magic works. At this point, we never got like confirmation of how these witches have the magic and how they're doing these things, which I think we might see in Doctor Strange too.
Well, we did get that little Easter egg where the Sorcerer Supreme's name got dropped. So yeah, maybe she'll go to him for some answers.
I would have loved to see Doctor Strange show up and just be like, Wanda, what are you doing? like hello? Yeah, this is bad. This is what we were, this is why we locked you up after Sokovia. Like, this is it.
Like take him out at the knees or something. Turn him into a.
Which, by the way, see, that's something like they actually teased us with the X-Men connection with Evan Peters. The Doctor Strange thing, nobody promised that.
Yeah.
And
that's not the thing that
and people getting upset about that he wasn't there. It's like, really?
God, no.
That's the whole notion of and I have to credit them every time I say this because I'm stealing it. This is what the good folks from the Force Center podcast always say: is speculate responsibly. And the Doctor Strange thing, if you were upset about him not being there, you were not being responsible with your speculation.
No, nobody should ever be upset at any theory being wrong. Like, period. But at the same time, Doctor Strange isn't the Sorcerer Supreme, but is a very powerful magic user. Assuming that Agatha, and him are on similar levels, like, and that she could perceive this reality from a point in time and wherever she was from or at the time, like, it feels like maybe somebody should have been alerted. Like, maybe the protectors of the masters of the mystic arts should have been aware of this in some kind of capacity. But ultimately, no one's
out of their job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like she's like threatening the rewriting of the entire world, and they're just like, yeah, but the sanctum.
All right. If she ever shows up in New York, though.
Yeah, then she's done.
Well, and actually, this was, and here, Stephen, I'm about to get into my sort of philosophy of why I like self-contained storytelling over integrated cinematic universes. But actually, I rather enjoyed that aspect of like Doctor Strange not just showing up and having a big part, because this was very much Wanda and Vision's story. It didn't have this big cameo from the other MCU movies and stuff like that. I like that it stayed focused on them, rather than let's bring in every Avenger that we can get away with.
Yeah. Plus, if Doctor Strange had come in and saved the day, like it wouldn't send at all the message that they wanted to.
No. There was like zero chance that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like John said, it was Wanda and Vision's story that they weren't able to flesh out, appropriately in the MCU movies. And just by giving them the second chance, we can really just delve into their relationship, and how much they truly just love one another. This unlikely couple,
Yeah, and despite the fact that the final episode did have this, sort of big action element, the story that they were telling, what Wanda was going through emotionally, it was still talking on her her love with Vision and the trauma that she had gone through. If you bring in Doctor Strange for the big finale, then it becomes a whole different thing. It's not about that anymore. So
they got to live a lifetime together in 9 episodes.
Sort of, yeah.
Especially,
and that's what Wanda has to hold on to go on.
Yeah, that's pretty touching. I like the emotional development that Wanda's had. I would have liked to see, because they started this theme of your truth. The Nexus commercial had it. Monica spoke about it, and then one other instance. But but like defining what's happened to Wanda and then owning that and like moving forward from that. I thought that was a really grand idea. And I would have liked to have seen that, kind of come to a point in the finale there, in the sense of like, Wanda truly acknowledging what she's done is one thing, but then, saying sorry, that's another. Or trying to make up for it, in any way that you can. Like, I feel like she should have begged for mercy. I feel like she should have cried and pleaded and tried to make people understand her perspective, and anything that wasn't just telling Monica, I'm sorry that I did this, and then running when the cops came. Like, and I think ultimately it shapes what her character's going to be. She is super powerful. She's not going to answer to anybody anymore. And that's great if you have utilitarian good in mind, but bad if you ultimately don't want anyone to have oversight over you, like was the entire issue with Sokovia Accords. And at the same time, just do things that you think are good, when the reality is that the net gain is not positive. Yeah.
I liked the dark edge that it's gave to her character. That again, it's like she says sorry to Monica, but she doesn't really, she doesn't tempt, and she doesn't think it would do any good to apologize to anybody else. And then we get that bit at the end that makes us really uneasy about where she's headed. So I like that, she's a very dangerous character at the end of this. So
yeah, and that's it, man. Like, I gave Wanda the benefit of the doubt every single chance I found an opportunity to. And I still give her the benefit of the doubt, in the sense that if Cthon, or if, whoever was behind the stones and showing her that image, granted her that wish, or showed her that image with the knowledge that the probability magic that she has would take over and get her to that point, then it does take accountability off of Wanda, because, this is a higher being, knowing the complete picture, knowing the cost, and still putting it in front of Wanda for her to do the steps herself. So in that sense, yes, there is still some way that she's not the villain at the end of the day, but man, like
we're splitting hairs of theories to try to make to find a way to make her not the bad guy.
Is there a problem with her being a villain?
No, I don't have a problem. Like,
I just don't think she is. Sorry.
I will freely admit to anyone who will listen, I am my own worst enemy and always have been. Like, I am the antagonist and protagonist of my own story most of the time. It's actually very relatable for Wanda to be her own worst enemy in this series.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's had to deal with grief in the past, that the way that she ignores her past creates this facade for herself where she can hide behind and not talk about it. That's very, very relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's out of this intense grief that she has, where her whole, after she tries to claim Vision's body, and she goes to the house where, the site where they were supposed to retire and grow old together, and it just broke her. It just freaking broke her at that point. And that's where, all the grief was just like a black hole.
So if you slow down the clip where she starts the thing, it shows her like ripping her heart open. Like, she is like going nails into chest and just ripping open. And that's such a powerful thing. Like, it honestly makes me think that she tried to kill herself, right? Like, this was that breaking pinnacle moment where she just could not take it anymore, and and that was it. And like, I kind of wish they leaned into that more, where they kind of stressed that this was like her breaking point, right? Like, she's having this fit, but it was only when I slowed down and watched like frame by frame that she's like, doing that thing.
It's almost like it's being pulled out of her, like she's ripping this power, all this grief. Her emotion is just blasting out of her in just that one scene. And if you've ever, she's just, like you say, she broke. That was where the camel's back broke. And You know, whomst amongst us, you know, had we been put in that same situation, wouldn't have just freaking lost it like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, can't be in control of yourself. I mean, people are people. You're not in control of your emotions 100% of the time. And when you're a human with these incredible godlike powers, you know, sometimes shit happens. And that's the whole question about you know, should people have that kind of power and the mistakes that can happen? Obviously not, because, you know, I don't have Eldritch Blast or something, but
Not yet.
not yet. Working on it.
I want to say, you know, stepping back in episode, I was really blown away by episode 9 and the way it showed us certain things. That whole sequence with young Wanda and Pietro, and
that would be episode 8.
Yeah, and watching, you know, and watching the Dick Van Dyke Show and lulling you into this sort of, you know, calm and even smiling. I was smiling watching that, and, you know, I was feeling good. And then they hit you with that explosion, and it's the most it's the most that I've felt ever watching anything from the MCU. It you know, ripped my heart out. And then when you see that, you know, that Stark missile or whatever, and it just all comes back around, and it's that just had me aching inside. I thought that was a master stroke, the way they did all that.
I could agree more. That seeing the DVD, seeing them like as a happy family, understanding why her accent changes, like so many like subtle reveals in that sequence. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. And of course, like as soon as we see them, as soon as the like sad music starts playing, I'm like, wow, this is the night that they get blown up. This is it, and we're gonna see that. And they still shocked me. Like the way they you know, edited the explosion together. It was just like this like super quick, like almost a jump scare kind of explosion, like to really emphasize, you know, the devastation that happened to her family that night. And man, it was brilliant. I loved every moment of it. And of course, like, you know, that was just the first one. Like every sequence was just like such a touching thing for her emotionally, you know, growing and what she's been through, and to show us an additional details about why she is the way she is right now. And I think that was beautiful. Episode 8 was probably my favorite at this point. Yeah.
I really thoroughly enjoyed episode 8. I really thoroughly enjoyed episode 7 with the Agatha reveal, you know.
Getting the backstory on both of them.
I probably would have enjoyed it more if we hadn't been analyzing the show all, you know, up to that point, and I hadn't suspected that, you know, there was going to be a reveal like that. Yeah,
but the song and dance, that was unexpected. I was like, yes, this is good.
Just got its own theme song.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it wasn't Agatha all along. It was literally Wanda the whole time. Like she did everything. Agatha was at best a interesting observer with morally bad, you know, tendencies. Like
she's quite the opportunist, shall we say.
And I do want to at this point, you know, throw a shout out to Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who wrote the songs for this, along with and Christoph. It's either Christoph or Christopher Beck who did all the Beck, and he did the music for this show. And as someone who normally, again, you know, I'm usually writing on the MCU about something, and it's usually about the music, which I tend to think most of it isn't that great. I thought that he did an astounding job with the scoring for the show, and the songs were just perfect all the way through.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah. So the Agatha reveal. Hax, you're a comic book guy. I assume you were pretty sold on that outcome.
Agatha, yeah, 100%. And the I guess the big thing there is that, you know, it seemed like the early indicators were that Agatha's entire plot related to the children. You know, the first conversation she ever has is about, you know, leads to sex with Vision, and then of course the next conversation is, I think, about some relation to children, and then the For the Children plot, all of it. But ultimately, ultimately, I guess that meant nothing. I guess that was Wanda's subconscious doing that, or, you know, something. But yeah, that was one of the first indicators that I was just like, yeah, something's definitely wrong with her. And of course, I'm glad that ultimately became something. And you know, it wasn't just a red herring. I feel like a lot of people jumped on the Dottie train. You know, but yeah, I feel like Dottie was one where it was like she was cast in such a way that it was like she was a known face where you could like definitely see her in a recurring role. But then like compared to Catherine Hahn, I was just like, dude, like she is definitely the big bad here. Like if anyone is hiding a secret, I don't think they would do it more than once. Well, I'm sorry. At one point, I did think that the entire town were witches, like all the women that we saw at the thing were like Agatha's coven. Yeah, I thought that would have been a great twist. But you know, again, so yeah, as soon as Agatha was revealed, I was like, yes, cool, we got one.
Yeah, I was super happy with the casting of Dottie as well.
Yeah,
being a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, and she was on that show for many, many years, and they put her in an episode with a bunny, which was just a meta, so good. But
yeah, but you should never have had her as the villain holding the bunny, because she wouldn't want anything to do with it.
Well, we've just proven that she's not actually on Yanka, but that's fine. So yeah, it was one that I expected her role to be bigger, and they were doing like, she was doing press interviews about being on WandaVision. So
yeah,
hey, I expect you're going to have a big part. And then she shows up a couple of other times, sort of like almost as a glorified extra. And that's about it. But, you know, again, that I don't see that as a problem.
No.
Because the show ultimately is about.
And I thought she did incredibly well with all the scenes.
Oh yeah,
she was playing. Yeah. So, especially you know in the last episode when she's begging, you know, wanted to use her daughter, I think it is, and just so she can see her.
Dude, heartbreak. That was more like that. I wanted more scenes like that where we saw the emotions of the town and the people that were, you know, held captive. I wanted more of that. Because I love that scene. Like, because it didn't show that they were afraid. It didn't show like that she was like, you know, trying to get away or flee or anything like that. You know, it's at the point of their captivity where they've just accepted that they're captive at this point, and they are, you know, willing to negotiate with their captor that, hey, like, please just, you know, we'll be good. Just please, just, you know, let me have my daughter back. Let her come out of her room. You know, like that negotiation and bargaining aspect of you know, being captive is just, I love that they skip to that instead of going for you know, fight or flight reflex, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Wanda's just seeing just coming to hearing it from the mouths of the people that she's been controlling all these weeks, and she's just like, it's okay, you know, I'll fix it. But yeah, she still wants to hold on to that reality for as long as she can, you know. She knows what it's going to cost her.
And my heart breaks. Like I feel so bad for Wanda. Like, you know, she definitely deserves better in life, but man, at what cost?
What cost?
Yeah.
Well, but again, it's I would argue that Wanda is the single most powerful being in the MCU. Captain Marvel might be able to give her a good run, but I'm pretty sure Wanda would come out on top of that.
Probably, yeah.
But that being said, she still has a human heart, and it was in conflict with herself. George R.R. Martin would have loved it for that very reason. And it's very relatable, despite the fact that she can reshape reality to some degree. She is coping with her grief, and that's really what the whole story is about. And it did give us, that idea gave us the best line of the whole show, and maybe it's a top 5 line in the whole MCU, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But what is grief if not love persevering? It gave me chills when I first heard it. People I've talked to afterwards have all said, yeah, that's like the definitive line of the whole series.
Yeah, such a great moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the two of them putting the kids to bed and just spending that last bit of time they have together. It's like, oh, break my heart all over again.
I like the idea that man, I forget where it was. I think it was on Facebook, some random Facebook group that I'm in, but it was like, yeah, Wanda and Vision are having this touching moment while the kids are up there having like their, Spider-Man, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark, moment by themselves, like just off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, that's dark.
Yeah. Like the very, very last scene, Wanda's sitting there with, alone in the cabin in the mountains, probably somewhere back in Sokovia for all we know. Just as she hears the twins, she hears them like, hey, there's like a little bit of hope,
That's a great way to keep them in there too, because they were child actors. They were fine. They weren't going to blow me away with their acting, and they didn't need to. They just needed to be believable, and they were. But you can bring back aged up versions of those characters, because if they're in another plane of reality, you can do wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff with them, and they can be aged up. And I think they could be really interesting characters.
Yeah,
I will say I both liked and didn't like that final sequence. I liked it because visually I thought it was really awesome and disturbing, seeing Wanda just and the book pages turning. But then the thing with the kids, it's like, oh, she just had to sacrifice them and give them up. But here we are, like 2 scenes later. Never mind. They'll probably come back in some form.
There's no consequences. Yeah.
No, but she made the choice. The choice was she gave them up, not having the slightest idea that there might be a possibility.
I know, but that's the thing with all these movies. It's like you want to have the big dramatic moment, but then you want to take it back right after. It's just a quibble I have.
There's always.
I mean, it's the way I felt at the end of Infinity War, and to their credit, as far as that goes, they really did it. They stretched that about as much as they could by having the 5-year gap. I was actually impressed that they did that, because originally when I saw the end of Infinity War, I'm like, they'll all be back. And they were, but at least they stretched it out. Yeah.
But a lot of shit happened in that 5 years. A lot of trauma.
That's true. Honestly.
Sorry.
I was going to say some of the best stories that I think could still exist in the MCU, it relates to that 5-year span where just like humanity is devastated. Well, the entire universe is devastated, but just seeing like, imagine like Luke Cage or Daredevil, like living in that time, going through those scenarios, and like us seeing the perspective of just the average human through the lens of Daredevil, or again Luke Cage or Jessica Jones. Like, amazing. That would be such a good story for us to see that perspective. Like, I would love that.
I doubt they're going to use those characters.
They will undoubtedly not use those characters. Yeah, just like the Netflix shows are like they're good enough that I don't think they need it. But I could not see another person as Jessica Jones or Luke Cage. Iron Fist could probably be changed, but at the same time, it's honestly not that bad. It's also not good.
So I don't know. This person, Jaded Redhead, says she agrees with you.
Yes. It'd be so good. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing to see? Like, imagine New York and Hell's Kitchen. You see Daredevil just trying to figure out what to do with his life after everyone's been devastated and crime running rampant. Like, whew, God, that'd be so
I'd
compelling.
watch it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm already reaping what I sowing.
Those guys are like more street level, down with what's going on with the people. Where
Yeah.
the the Avengers, they're always like focused on the big global like threats to existence, and then not so much what happens to the little guy.
Yeah.
And these stories are important too, because it's because of those little guys that big things can happen later. Wanda's proof of that.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for what's happened with the other Marvel TV shows in this Disney Plus world, because as much as I enjoyed WandaVision, it's basically the big screen MCU expanded for television form, whereas shows that came out prior to this were telling different smaller scale stories with different characters and all that. Now it's just another avenue for the big screen characters. I could
do some more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah,
well, that's the thing. I think the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't canon anymore. I want to say like Kevin Feige doesn't consider it, because like I think at some point they have a copy of the Darkhold or something like that. And they also explore like the Inhuman base on Mars, or I'm sorry, on the moon. I've never actually seen the show past season 1, so I don't know. I could be way off here, but
Coulson exists in both universes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that is the best way. If they want to canonize everything, including what we've gone through with the X-Men, which I think that they should. I don't think we should start the whole thing over again. But there's more money in starting it over again, so they're probably going to do it that way. But just compartmentalize. Just every single reality that could exist does exist, and we have this reality. The main one is the one where the MCU has grown so far. Quicksilver and all of them all exist in their own thing. The reason that they weren't there to fight Thanos is because in their reality it wasn't a thing, or they did fight him and we just don't know about it because it was a different reality.
Well, see, the thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I also loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it really only found its footing in like the last third of season 1, and then it just proceeded to get better and better. They made every effort possible to tie in with the films. The films just weren't returning the favor. And full disclosure, I was enjoying that show a lot more than several of the MCU films themselves. The first, 3/4 of the show, of the first season notwithstanding. So I really personally would love to see some of those characters find their way into the larger MCU. I think it's probably not ever going to happen, but like, especially like, give me Ming-Na Wen as Melinda May, please.
With Boba Fett now, that's her job.
Yeah.
the Krull storyline is going to be reintroduced, so there's that.
Yeah. Secret Invasion, Secret Wars is coming, I think.
Oh yeah.
So that might have some S.H.I.E.L.D. tie-ins, obviously.
We've been going for about an hour, so let's do the mid-roll, and then we'll come back and keep the party going.
And then we have to start talking about Darcy.
Yes.
And Jimmy.
We have not mentioned her once yet, so we'll get back to it. But yeah, this is the part of the stream where I go, oh yeah, please hit the like and please hit subscribe, because YouTube things. Also got to shout out our wonderful patrons. You guys know who you are. Several of you are in the comments or in the chat right now. Our High Council is, of course, consists of Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, Sixto Sounds, aka JP the Axe Grinder, and of course, ridiculous Ed Tollett, who is probably getting off work right now and heading home. That's how we know. That's how we know work is over, because it's the mid roll. And they are, of course, backed up by the lords and ladies of the realm, including the Lady Leaf Underhill and Aemy Blackfyre, lover of poles. You guys are great. Thank you so much for continuing to support us. Love you guys. So we'll go in reverse order. Nessie, what's coming up on Unspun Yarn?
Oh, okay. Well, this Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, we're going to have our third installment of Bleep the Patriarchy, called Bleep Ahoy, y'all. So, is that our third or is our second? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The next episode is called Bleep Ahoy, and the lovely and very knowledgeable about especially boats and shippy type things, Kelly, the Jaded Redhead, is going to be coming on the Unspun Yarn, and we're going to be talking about
Jaded Redhead.
Jaded Redhead. Yes, we'll be talking all about maritime misogyny, etc., etc. So, yay!
Looking forward to that one.
That'll be fun. Bleep ahoy!
Right on, right on. And you're gonna is Aemy gonna be co-hosting that with you?
Of course. The lovely Aemy Blackfyre is my co-host for Bleep the Patriarchy. So she'll, of course, will be there, and we'll just let hijinks ensue.
Right on, right on. John, I know you guys just had a big change over there on John Webster Film.
Yeah. We're in the middle of a shift, and we're actually delayed by a couple weeks because I just needed a break. So Aemy and I talked about it, and we decided to take a couple weeks off, but we will be resuming soon, and we're changing over to a podcast format, which you'll still be able to watch the video versions over on John Webster Film, but you can also listen to our chats they'll be available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the usual places, as the Cinematic Realms podcast. Our first episode which we've already recorded, will just be a discussion between the two of us, sort of setting up what the podcast is going to be, and then the week after that we'll be talking about The Wizard of Oz. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming in a little bit. We're still in the middle of our little break.
Right on, right on. Hax, what do you got coming up on your channel?
Yeah, so I'm working on the breakdown for the finale still. Still getting my thoughts together and editing it all together. And after that, I'm going to move over to Falcon and Winter Soldier and go on to cover that. I also want to work on a video about Kong and kind of just make some fun content in that universe as well, because it's a great story, and I think it's also ultimately going to be a really good movie to talk about. But so that's pretty much everything. I'm also in between that trying to work on a script for Avatar. Hopefully something comes from that. But yeah,
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
I would watch the crap out of that. Next week on Here Be Dragons, I don't know. Literally don't know what we're doing. Nessie, you're working next weekend, right?
I'm working next weekend. Yes.
So I will tell you this. I will know within 24 hours what we're doing, but that means John and I will have to discuss.
Meeting.
If we would just have the staff meetings, then we'd have something planned.
We sat down for 2 hours to make sure this didn't happen, and we did not talk about scheduling once.
When did we do that?
A couple weeks ago. We got on a Zoom call together, and we talked for like 2.5 hours, and we didn't talk once about the thing we were supposed to talk about.
No. What we did was, it was a chat like after a stream, and it was like the equivalent of a Zoom chat, but we never established it as one of our staff meetings. So,
okay, fair enough.
So we need to have an official one.
I'm thinking there's easy mode, which is just do another retro review of an old movie. But I have a new potential guest lined up for that as well. somebody that I've chatted with on Twitter a little bit who's never been on the channel. So
I'm just saying, if we do a retro review, like Highlander was one vote away.
And it was really easy. The other thing is, I kind of got a couple people that I really want to do and I know that nerd with, one of them being Dan from Voice of Geek.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be really awesome too.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you, Kate, for that. You are really keeping the ball rolling on that Howard the Duck love. So I'll talk with Dan, see what he's up to. Maybe he wants to talk Highlander instead. Yeah, Dan, I'll get with you after the stream.
Sorry.
I'll get with you after the stream and we'll figure it out. But Highlander is probably our next retro review anyway, just because it was so close on the poll. Literally lost the last poll by 1 vote. So yeah.
FYI, I put 3 of the nominations in.
You did.
So I win all the way around. One, but one of them did win.
So yeah, that's all I've got. Anybody else have anything for the mid-roll?
Nothing here.
No. Okay, great.
No, I'll just say as we go into the second half, I really apologize to, and I don't apologize to you guys, but people in the chat. It's like just an automatic reflex when I feel compelled to say something negative about the MCU movies. So I'm really going to try to cut that shit out for the second half of the stream. And it'll just be positive things about WandaVision.
No hating on my girl Darcy and no hating on my Jimmy Woo.
I mean, we're all allowed to have our opinions here. And the fact that we don't have all the same opinions makes for good conversation.
Yeah.
So,
and in all honesty, I'm not nearly that negative on the MCU. It's
almost a bit with you at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a shtick. We just let it run with it.
So you brought it up before the mid-roll, Nessie.
Yeah.
Kat Dennings as Dr. Darcy Lewis.
Dr. Darcy, yes.
True.
The unsung hero of WandaVision.
Have fun in prison.
Have fun in prison, yeah. And, when she's, the last thing we see at the end of, episode 6 was her being overtaken by the Hex and fudge, so we're, so happy to see her right at, I said fudge, Kelly, at the beginning. It's a circus. And what an analogy, for the transformation of all these military goons and then people that were, this sword agents and what have you, just to be turned into clowns. Wanda's just clowns out of all of them, literally. And I mean, what a burn. What a sick burn.
I like how when she came in, the next time we see her, she's still chained up, but she's the escape artist.
Right.
The circus, and she's just and free. Fantastic. Well, and her costume. I mean,
oh yeah,
great costume that they had on her as well.
Yeah, it was just the hijinks, the circus atmosphere, Vision, he joins in, breaks her out of the mind control or what have you, and they steal a funnel cake truck, like a they steal a food truck.
It's also brilliant how because they're doing basically like the Modern Family episode, and they've got the Vision outside the truck sitting in
Vision was hilarious in this whole episode, just the way he sort of deadpan stared into the camera.
Jim the camera.
Ball is just completely gone at this point, and it's just the inanity of all the roadblocks, that Wanda's like throwing out. Like, I really just don't want to deal with this right now. I really just don't want to deal with this right now. It's like, come on, seriously, I was just waiting for him to I'm just waiting. Okay, he's got to get fed up with this at any moment now at this like zoom in.
I love that he's just giving that interview to somebody, I guess, and is like, man, what am I doing here? And just leaves, right? Like, and even takes the time to like fiddle with the microphone as if like he couldn't just phase upward and everything disconnect from him. Like, it's just humanizing. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it was such a great homage to to Modern Family and the way that they do things. So good.
And that's someone Aaron brings up, that Paul Bettany's comedic acting was so good. In episode 2 when they did the magic show, like honestly, I love Paul Bettany. Like him in Knight's Tale, such a good performance, and him opening the curtains, and it's like I just expected him to start yelling today, like to start his epic monologue.
I still consider it a grievous crime that he was not nominated for Best Supporting Actor for A Knight's Tale. I'll just say it.
Insane.
Yeah, Paul Bettany's been brilliant ever since I've known who he was.
Yeah.
And this just was another opportunity for him to play Vision in such a weird context that he got to do a lot of different things, plus play the White Vision, which is yet another character. I think as an actor, I'm sure it's not fun to get under all that makeup, but how much fun is it to play such a weird, wild character that gets to do so many different things?
And I'm now really interested to see what happens with that other version of Vision.
Oh yeah.
Where they take that character.
Yeah, because whatever the end of that exchange happened off camera. So
he leaves.
Yeah, Vision leaves.
Yeah.
The White Vision left.
Yeah, he just leaves and I don't know. That's like
you know what happens to him is what I'm saying.
Vision, why are you white? Oh my God, Wanda, you can't just ask people why they're white.
It's like, hello, are you there? I really like the idea that Vision that leaves is like the most accurate Vision that we'll ever get again. Because it's like the positive perception of who Vision was incarnate, by Wanda merging with the physical body and reanimating, by science means of what Tony Stark did and what Helen Cho and what Bruce Banner did. So I like the idea of these are now one, and that's a semblance of what Vision was. At the same time, I think if that was like he says, I am Vision. I either expected him to fly into the air and blow up because his prime directive was that he was there to destroy Vision and neutralize Wanda. So in that sense, I was genuinely expecting him to fly into the air and then to show a shot of him just exploding, to show like Vision won by like this logic bomb. This logic bomb. So that would have been cool. But yeah, assuming he just leaves, I don't know where he would have gone. Like if it was Vision and he now had those memories of Wanda and all the positive things that they've gone through, you would have thought that he would have gone to Wanda. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that this Vision and Wanda had the moment together, because like that was what this was all about. But at the same time, like what is this white spectral Vision doing now? Like what is he going to be? Is he still going to be loyal to anybody, or is he just now a voyager through the cosmos? I don't know.
Well, the question is, was he able to gain agency by all of the memory transfer that Vision Prime, I guess you would call it, or Wanda's Vision?
Yeah.
Transferred
Wanda's Vision. Sorry.
Wanda's Vision transferred to him, via his memory chips. So, if he gains agency, if he gains sentience, shall we say, then he's able to make his own decisions. And that was the whole thing with Vision.
I guess he could have that's a really good point. Like he may not have that. It's described as his memories being unlocked, but at the same time, Hayward, when they first start talking about this new Vision's, what he's doing. Like Hayward explicitly says, like, do we still have control of him? Like, have we lost the reins already? Like, as if they were just expecting them to fire this missile that they think is going to hit their enemies, and then there's a giant chance that it hits everybody. And so like their first dialogue isn't like, how's the fight going? It's, have we lost control of him yet? Like, so
Right.
yeah, I think it's interesting. And ultimately that might be it, right? Like he may have just excused himself from the fight because he wasn't able to act outside of his programming. But so maybe it's that logic that made him leave without taking any genuine action or meaningful action.
Right.
But the ship of Theseus scene, so good.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe that's probably one we've all heard before, that mental exercise about the ship of Theseus, but it is very applicable to the conversation that the two of them are having. And it was, what a way to break up the action sequences, because I actually thought the Vision versus Vision fight was really well done because of the way they were using the phasing powers, each of them, to get away and to dodge and to, like, I'll phase your wrist through my wrist and now I've got you grappled. I thought it was just really good. And then there's that moment of, in the library, I can't remember exactly what Vision says to Spectral Vision, but it gets him to stop and he's like, I need you to elaborate.
Yeah.
That was such a great moment where he just stops and it's like, I request elaboration. It's like, oh, that's Vision after all.
He's like, wait a minute, run that by me again? What'd you just say?
Yeah. Well, they were, physically they were a match for one another. So the only way that Vision Prime and Vision, Spectral Vision, whatever, would be able to, weren't on the same wavelength, so to speak, was the fact that Vision had the memories. He had all of the essence of Vision. Whether he had the physical body or not, he was the essence of Vision.
Well, and what I really valued about that whole exchange on the second viewing was that after unlocking the memories, and both of them get the memories at that point, and that made the Vision that we've been watching this whole time as close to the true Vision as you could possibly get. So it just made those final moments between him and Wanda just so emotional, and it was just really affecting to watch that, especially the second time. I think they did such a great job of really bringing home all the emotions of this story and making it compelling in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for her to just kind of come to herself again amidst the foundations of that house that they never built together, just in the weeds and everything, like it's all gone.
I half expected her or like a neighbor to walk by after she deconstructed everything and legitimately like Dottie be like, oh, hey, how are you? Are you new to the neighborhood? And it'd just be like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah. Like, just like this.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah. Just like, not retcon the whole thing, but like show like explicitly what could happen with her magic if she loses control. That would have been such a like, I have to imagine they debated whether or not to do that, because it seemed like after she was just standing there by herself, the moment like just was too long, as if anything could happen at that point. That would have been pretty wild. And it would also tie in this idea of like dreams and the simulation of this reality, which was a theory for a little bit, because like so many things reference nightmares or dreaming or perceptions of reality and stuff like that. I'm happy with what happened and the fact that like all of this is canon now and all of this happened. But equally, if it didn't happen and this was just Wanda like getting a glimpse of what her magic could become, I think that would have been pretty cool too.
Can you imagine if at the end of this, the ending really was all a dream?
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I mean,
I'm really glad it wasn't.
But
it was,
at
yeah.
the same time, like that, like with that being, you know, having historical precedence in like television history,
Oh yeah,
that would have been a humorous
when they
wink
make
at
up
that.
out of the
they could have done it.
comedy.
Yeah, they could have done it because it doesn't take away all of the plot, because we know that Hayward is genuinely doing something that at the end of this we're supposed to consider, you know, bad. And yeah, so Wanda would realize what she has to do. Maybe go forward from there. I don't know, but
at the same time, like I think there had to be the gravity and the weight of what she had done, of that actually having occurred, and having to then bear the weight of her actions, and you know, and what she's actually done. So,
and that's just been Wanda's story time and time again. Like she's always got some kind of blood on. She's got some kind of blood on her hands.
Alicia, that's why I would have loved it.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
The trolls, yeah, that would have been a heavy trolling. But yeah, the Wanda's got blood on her hands, you know, and she's been dealing with that, you know, this entire time. And you know, to have ended this story with her, you know, nobody quote died here. That, you know, the town wasn't, you know, we didn't nuke the entire town, but people were harmed still, you know, and she did bad things.
Yeah, I would have loved as well, as the town was shrinking, if she just stopped at like the house, right? Like if she just like shrunk it down to the size of just
I actually thought that was an option.
Yep.
You can't go outside and play, kid.
But thematically, the show is about learning to deal with your grief and move on from it.
Yeah.
And shrinking the hex down to your house and living in that
wouldn't have worked. But in the moment,
right.
I consider that as a possibility. But you're right, in terms of the thematics and
the character
sort of it wouldn't have worked. But in that moment, I was like, just the way it was shrinking down, I was like, it's gonna stop right at the house.
Yeah, just the way, like through the window or something about it was like, that could stop. I could totally see that stopping right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was still hoping the kids were going to make it, though, even though I kind of knew they wouldn't. But, you know, I had like a smidgen of hope that, like, okay, Vision's gone because, he's dead.
Oh, but don't worry. The kids are fine now. Remember, they're going to be back.
Yeah.
They will be back. I'm not going to say that they're fine, but I was
going to say they're being tortured in the hell dimension, but they're fine.
Screaming for help right now. So, you know, mom instincts are activated. Just hate to see it. Hate to see what's going to happen to whoever's harming them kids.
You know, Helga was imprisoned to, I think it's described as the hell dimension or the death dimension or something like that. But when Odin imprisons Helga for all those years until his death, and then she comes out of like this like bluish green portal, I think, there on Earth, and destroys Mjolnir. Like, firstly, such a great villain. Two, I feel like there's like so many different ways to tie these stories together, because like stuff like that, you know, we could explore that further, and who's in control of that dimension, and who's like, you know, the gatekeeper or you know, like you know, in charge of warranting, or I'm sorry, guarding those souls that are sent there. Like, you know, in that sense, I think, you know, Mephisto is still definitely possible to be able to join this story at some point, but more than likely, I feel like, you know, Mephisto, Chthon, like all of these big bads are probably going to be mashed into one, like on a scale of like Dormammu, like, or even one above Dormammu. Like if Doctor Strange 2 starts with Chthon just like destroying Dormammu just because like Dormammu was upsetting him, that would be such a crazy way to show like the power dynamics in play. Yeah, the power dynamics in play, and show exactly what Wanda is worshiping, right? Like she, or not worshiping, but studying right now, because we know that the Darkhold was written by Chthon, even if it's not MCU canon.
I'm sorry, like every time I hear Dormammu, I get a headache, because they said because Strange said his name
Dormammu!
over and over and over. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Oh my God, stop it.
Well, I mean, we've seen God tier beings before, so
a few of them,
A few of them.
I mean, it's really all perception, right? Like Thor is considered a god to
Yeah.
well, I guess probably mankind, but
if you're okay, so we watched Doctor Strange defeat Dormammu.
Yeah.
And
In
then
a
we
way.
saw him do things with Thanos in Endgame, or not Endgame, in Infinity War, that seemed like he was just that much more powerful. And now we know that Wanda is going to be part of his next movie. They have to up the stakes.
yeah. It's gonna be something big. It's gonna be
Yeah.
That's why I think Chthon definitely, probably, maybe involved, just because of what she's doing right now.
We'll see.
We're at the end of it.
Hey, I mean, the sky's the limit right now. They can add in or go with whatever they want to.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of stuff to draw from, and I really do appreciate how they look at all the comics that came before it, and they say, we can take this and this and this, and then we can add a little paprika, throw in some garlic, and mix it together. And it's like, if you read the comics, you will recognize the flavors that they're drawing. It's a completely new dish at the end. So even if you are deeply into the comics, as I'm assuming you are, Hax, and as I know that Kelly, Jaded Redhead, is as well, like, you still can't necessarily predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I'm too involved in the comics. Like, I've definitely spent a lot of time reading through the wikis and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I own a box that's sitting right next to me, and then I've read a bunch online. But yeah,
it's more than I do.
Yeah, just so everyone's like,
I'm not a comic book guy.
Yeah, the comic book expert by any means. Yeah,
I'm a D&D guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Film
well,
guy,
I'm excited to do Doctor Strange because of all of he's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
All the weird, I love. It's more my flavor with all the magic and stuff. So that's kind of my gig. So I'm here for that Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch future crossover. I'm here for it.
I can't wait.
And I forget if I brought this up already, but I so feel like Agatha and the Ancient One have some relation to each other. Like, both of them, well, I guess still assuming with Agatha, but have this connection to like the dark dimension in the sense of like where their power's coming from. Still, again, a theory with Agatha because it's never exactly confirmed, but they are also centuries old. They also use like some kind of magic to keep themselves looking as young as they do. I just feel like there's so many similarities between their characters that could explain why the Ancient One ever reached out and used dark magic at all. And I think that could tie into Agatha as she's going through being a witch, and also how Agatha came to be in possession of the Darkhold. Like, that's such a colossal thing that we're she just has. And part of me thinks that, for the MCU, it doesn't really matter, but part of me thinks there's a story to be told there as well.
Yeah. I mean, Scarlet Witch has it, so
yeah,
it's not
that I got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
There was something I was going to bring up a minute ago. It'll come to me. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I did think it was interesting when they had the different confrontations with the witches that their magic would be in different colors, indicating that like their power had different sources right away. The blue magic or the blue whatever colors for the Coven witches, of which Agatha was once a part of, but then you see when Agatha's, purple, black, energy comes out, it's like, oh yeah, this is different. She's got something different going on here. Yeah. She's made a deal with a great old one or something.
That would be Chthon. Chthon is basically the Cthulhu of Marvel, I think. Yeah. Is that a fair assessment? Anyone?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Okay. I remember what I wanted to bring up, by the way. Monica friggin' Rambeau. We haven't really discussed her much, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of her from the finale. But, we didn't. We didn't get a whole lot of Jimmy Woo or Darcy either. that's okay. It is what it is. But
the thing about that, Stephen, is just like every single MCU movie, WandaVision, as much as it's telling its own story, it's also just a stepping stone to the next,
setting up the next thing.
Story. So
great, or three possibly great stories that can be told. You know, it's setting up Monica's adventures with the Skrull, and
that's Captain Marvel 2.
Captain Marvel too. Yes, I've got a friend of your mother's that needs to talk to you. It's like, okay, cool.
Right.
Who could that be? Who could that possibly be? Yeah, and then
It's Mads Mikkelsen, isn't it?
Or Jimmy Woo and Darcy.
No. I'm sorry, I always get his name wrong. Ben Mendelsohn. That's the name I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, if we ever do a talk about Captain Marvel, I'm just going to go on and on about how much I love Ben Mendelsohn.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's incredible.
Thank you
there's a
for
lot of
pointing that out.
I think there's a lot of potential with Monica. Like, I really wish her powers would have been explored a little more, but again, you know, this is the start of Phase 4. I like the idea that just Captain Marvel 2 and she just meets her halfway across the universe, like she said when she was a kid. And also, you know, they never really explained the interesting dynamic about, you know, why she's kind of upset with Captain Marvel. You know, because there's a few mentions to her and she kind of like grimaces away. You know, so again, like my theory about that is that Skrulls have far more advanced technology than we do. She may resent the Skrulls or Captain Marvel for not being there for her mother at the very end when she ultimately died to cancer. Like, you know, so I think it could be that, but again, just a theory. Like that was something that they set up that was never really explored further. Why there was anything but a positive relationship, which was the last thing that we saw between those two.
Well, that's the thing. I expect to get that in the next Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah. That 5-year gap, man. That 5-year gap set up a lot of great storytelling. You know, Monica, I'm sure, felt abandoned, you know, by Captain Marvel. You know, which she left her again. She left when she was a child. Promised to come back, and
I never did.
Well, she did, but at that time, Monica was gone, you know, victim of the snap or what have you. So the last memories she has are, you know, her mom's in the bed with cancer. She just had surgery. Captain Marvel's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure there's some angst there. Because she probably worshipped her. You know, she looked up to her a lot when she was a kid. You know, her mom's best friend who did all these cool things and then went to space and became a superhero. You know, so
yeah,
I'm sure that fueled her desire to go to space and to, you know, with Sword.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Like it seems like that was really such a big motivator for her. You know, and of course seeing her mother, you know, go back and start whatever Sword was supposed to be before it you know, started creating sentient weapons. Yeah, and you know, so I really like the idea of that. You know, her being motivated to do this thing, and then ultimately, you know, Captain Marvel isn't anywhere to be found. That's probably it. I think we're probably super close to exactly what happened. But again, yeah, it's a setup for something far greater. But it would be nice to know what that thing was right now.
More hearts in conflict with itself.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Relationships are tricky.
Yeah, and Vanessa says, I wish her powers were highlighted more. I totally agree. Yeah, it seems like there's like alternating colors between her eyes and her abilities. You know, and that could speak to how her powers work. Well, it probably speaks to how her powers work, and it's not simply just she's able to observe different energy levels, though that's probably part of it. But yeah, what do y'all think about that? Like, is there any big powers that stick out that could mean more?
I don't think we got to see enough of her powers to really know.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just basically figured out that, hey, I'm different now. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I just see it as the first step in telling the story of what her abilities are now. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is basically, each film or now TV show is essentially just another episode. It's just because WandaVision is over, it doesn't mean that all the threads that were set up, were meant to reach some, final build up and conclusion. It's certain things were planted in this that are going to come to fruition in the next thing. So I feel that her powers were set up, and I think we're going to see a lot of that probably in the Captain Marvel movie, or or something else. So I mean, I was fine with it, but
yeah.
There's nothing that makes me go, that's going to be mind blowing. But we, the audience, much like Monica herself, don't really know what her powers are yet.
Yeah.
I think when she used her phasing powers when she got shot, it was probably a very reflexive action for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and her journey to discover what she can do is going to be, a big part of the, her character development, and whatever media form it takes. Probably, Captain Marvel too. Probably, more than likely.
Yeah.
And then having, been in that relationship with.
Is Darcy going to be in Love and Thunder?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Do you guys see the pictures of Natalie Portman floating around?
Yes.
Her on set?
No, because
Ripped Natalie Portman. Yeah, sorry.
No.
Spoiler.
No spoilers, but yeah.
No, there's no spoilers, John. Like, it's just like she looks ripped.
Ripped. Yeah.
Like her arms are okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna be Thor. You get in the bod for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is this a thirst stream or what? Before you let me off my leash.
Isn't it always a thirst stream?
Yeah, I mean,
when Natalie Portman's involved, yeah, of course. Buff Natalie Portman.
Even I.
Yeah.
Natalie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kate gets it.
Kate gets it.
Well, guys, we're about last 20 minutes, so I'm gonna, turn to the chat and say, if there's something we haven't brought up yet, if you have a question, a comment, something you'd like us to discuss before we get to the end.
I'll just say, in addition to, we need, Darcy to show up in Thor and Love and Thunder, but I also need more Jimmy Woo.
I was about to say, speculate on Jimmy. Where's Jimmy going?
I'm fine if he starts to fulfill, without the death part, the Coulson role, and just pops up in every Marvel movie. I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Well, Coulson's just reprising the Penny role from South Park, who he dies in every episode.
Kate, you do not have to fill every role of Peadar. Okay. So.
Yeah. Somebody brought up Howard the Duck earlier, and now Kate is misplacing Natalie Portman with Keira Knightley on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Don't do it.
Yeah.
It could happen, Kate.
Potter's not here, but man, his troll.
And you're part of the order too, Kate. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
So with Jimmy, I feel like there's a really cool way that he could become more than just a regular normie human.
I do too.
Like, when we first meet his character, he does the magic trick, which is a callback to Ant-Man, of course, but like it could be speaking to him actually becoming one of the people that practices the mystic arts, right? Like it's not just magic, it's like magic, in all caps. Like and we see that where he does that little card trick, which could be interpreted as something else, but he also talks about the perception of the barrier. Like he said that the town doesn't want us to go in, and that felt like such a weird thing. Like we see his car, it's parked away from the town as if he either left or did a U-turn mid drive. It feels like he stopped himself for some reason and then was like, let's see this up close, and then sees it up close, right? Like that is such a weird thing to do. Nobody would ever do that unless you had some perception of this reality that wasn't explicitly
he's
normal.
He's sensitive in some way.
But see, I kind of want him to remain just like a normal human, because I find some delight in him continuing to like be involved in stuff and just being sort of an outside observer instead of a superpowered individual.
Okay, but like,
I agree. Yeah,
Tony Stark's not superpowered. Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne are not superpowered.
Okay, superpowered or rich.
Or rich, yeah.
Well, they have a suit, and like. But
I mean, he could get another Ant-Man suit.
I think he could be a great foil to Ant-Man and the Wasp because of he's very smart. He's got in the government connections. He's, an FBI agent. He's a capable investigator. I think he could do really well in that role, even as a just quote unquote normal human the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point too, because like he does, as a normal human, he does bring a really cool perspective of the people that view superheroes as something that isn't explicitly bad, because a lot of the people in the MCU view Wanda, even before this, view Wanda as the evil that she could be instead of what she is, and that was a big part of Vision and her's relationship, and why they kind of clung to each other is because the perception of who they are is not who they are. It's just one is viewed as an object and one is viewed as this unstable weapon, which may be an accurate representation at the end of this, but ultimately, like, Jimmy Woo could have the positive relation to the superheroes that the world needs, like to show that they're not all bad. They're not going to do bad things, and not say that it's an accident. We can work with them instead of just viewing them as something that needs to be eradicated. And
I don't think that in general the MCU does things for optics, quote unquote. But I'm sitting over here thinking I cannot think of an Asian superhero in the MCU, and adding that type of diversity to the, because it is a fairly diverse cast. There's, but inclusivity can always be more and better. And I wouldn't mind it with Jimmy Woo, because I already love his personality. So even if he's like more of a, say, Spider-Man level hero than, say, a Captain Marvel tier, it would still be, I think it could be a lot of fun.
See, I think part of it for me is I just want, this is why I would really love for some of the characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to find their way into the MCU, because, like, you're talking about, Asian characters. Take Melinda May and put her in. She's just a badass fighter. And I think she'd be a great addition. I want characters that are humans who are involved in this fight. And when I say humans, I mean like non-superpowered individuals, just who have something to contribute, but aren't like, don't have some super suit or aren't bitten by a radioactive spider, or and
they're just good people doing good.
The little man,
exactly. And that's why I liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so much, because there were a couple of characters who did develop powers, but the core cast for the most part ended up being Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who were just interested in trying to do the right thing, and so it showed the even though whether or not it's canon or not at the time when the show started, it was meant to be sort of the ground level of the MCU, and characters who were maybe a little bit more relatable in that way. And so I'm interested in those characters being part of the overall saga. That's why I like the idea of Jimmy as not another superhero, that he's someone who can do good and who can contribute to the overall story and influence events, for good. And he doesn't have to be a superhero to do that.
Yeah.
Nope.
I will say at the same time, imagine him just like popping through a portal and he's like, "Hey, what's up, guys? I'm the master of the Grand Master of the New York Sanctum now," or something. I don't know. At the same time, I feel like he's in a unique position where I could not see him as that character because it feels like that's a more serious role, and he's a very jokey character. But you also look at like Wong, I think, and like he's a very jokey character as well. But badass fighter.
There is an Asian superhero, and it's Wong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I could
So
see
it's not zero, but we could always use more.
Yeah.
If Gambit wasn't already fleshed out,
Oh
but,
yeah.
I love Gambit. I love Gambit so much.
Gambit. He's one of my favorite little minor minor characters. But if you could like give Jimmy Woo, especially since we had like the card trick, which is Gambit's signature move.
Oh my God, you're right. Wait, yeah, I've never made that connection.
And
he could totally be Gambit.
luck.
Yeah.
Because Jimmy just always seems to have that little bit of luck when he needs it.
Well, he learned the card trick from Scott Lang, though.
Yeah.
But
hey, he knows it. It's his now. Yeah.
It's his now.
Yeah.
It's his signature move.
I say speculate responsibly.
Yeah.
It's fun to
responsibly.
Jimmy Woo Gambit. I would love that so very much.
As long as they don't make him speak in a French accent and say Cherie, like fine. Like
no,
Gambit.
I do love his whole thing with Hayward towards the end. It's like you're bluffing.
Oh,
am I?
Here's the thing with that though. So a couple episodes ago, I had this thought where Jimmy doesn't report to Hayward. Like perhaps in the scope of this team, like this Tiger team that was put together for this very specific thing, maybe he reports to Hayward, but he has a boss. Like as soon as they discovered what Hayward was doing, that should have been when he called in. Like, so that for me, I was like, yeah, what are you doing, man? Like, hello, like call your boss. Like I'm glad it's happening now, and I'm glad it was turned into a joke. It was funny, but at the same time, like if you discover that bomb, you're not going to go confront him yourself after you've already been, evicted off the campus. Like at that point, when like you start losing control of like your contribution to the project, like that's when you report to your direct supervisor and you're like, hey, something's up here. I need some backup because I think he's about to nuke the world or something. But so
he did a little sleight of hand trick with the cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Aaron there.
I don't want him to. I want him to be Jimmy Woo.
I'm just saying, and I did say, of course, without the character having already been fleshed out. And yes, he is a Cajun, and he's already been in,
No.
Well, the thing is, especially since Aemy and I have been watching X-Men the animated series, so I'm like, no, you got to have Gambit in his, full on true form, and the banter between him and Rogue, and do that whole thing, and I'd let Jimmy be Jimmy, and whatever direction that character takes, and then give me Gambit as well.
Yeah, Gambit would be amazing. Whoever it is, like I played, I forget what the name of the game was, but I played like on NES X-Men and would always play Gambit, and that was like my introduction to him as a character, and I just fell in love with after that. It was so good.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever beat the game. It was impossible, whatever it was, but
the sad imitation we got in, what was it, the Wolverine, one of the
no, I don't know. No, that movie does not exist. We do not speak of it here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The only Wolverine movies I remember were The Wolverine and Logan.
Right.
And anything else that you're alluding
Yeah,
to,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you're making that up, Nessie.
I don't think it's canon at this point anyway. You know.
Man, how good was Logan though?
So
I freaking love Logan.
My God, I cried so much, dude. I was no good. That whole movie was just such an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
That was
X-Men Oranges.
If you're trying to appeal to my love of orange juice, Stephen, it's not going to work. I'm not going to acknowledge the existence of that. No, and you know, we're sidetracking mentioning Logan here, but it's like Logan was so emotional for me just because I knew that, you know, even though we got a couple things after that, I knew that I thought she was talking about Logan.
No.
I don't think Aaron's seen Logan, so thank God. Yeah, okay. But no, I knew that the X-Men franchise as it's existed was coming to an end. So Logan was just really emotional because it did feel like the sort of emotional culmination of all those years of being an X-Men movie fan, and the fact that it focused on that relationship between Logan and Charles, and the fact that it was an adult film, that it felt like
an adult film.
Yeah, not that kind of adult film.
But made for grown-ups, though.
But the fact that it felt like that movie was allowed to age with its audience, that people who had seen the X-Men films as like teenagers were being treated to this movie for grown-ups in Logan to sort of say goodbye to the franchise in that way. So I really, really love that film.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So final thoughts on WandaVision.
Yeah.
We'll go around. We'll start again with our guest. Final thoughts on this series. And I guess I'll also throw a little bit of a question in there. Do you think we'll get another WandaVision series?
Yeah. So I don't think that we'll get another. I think that they plan out so far in the future that there's no way that we could have the continuation of this story. And I mean, well, I'm sorry, that's not true. They could very well in a very unique way far from now. But yeah, they plan out so far in the future that I don't think that we're going to have another WandaVision in whatever it exists as now. With that being said, I think that this WandaVision was everything it needed to be. I thought it was beautiful. It was a great, reflection of the emotions inside of Wanda and inside of the MCU across the board. And how they tackle these complex issues of grief and identity and stuff like that was really cool. I would have liked to see a little more of that tackling of grief and that understanding of your truth at the very end of this, and not be explicitly Wanda becoming the person that genuinely enslaved 3,000 people and then left. And so in that sense, I feel like maybe there's a little more they could improve on, or maybe I just need to maybe just rethink how I think about this, because it ultimately is the start of phase 4. I mean, it's not Wanda's complete story, but in terms of what this story was, again, it's about the emotional growth of Wanda, and I'm glad that we got that. So overall, 9 out of 10 series. I greatly enjoyed it.
Right on. John?
I think that this is probably as close to the MCU masterpiece as I can probably say. I think that they did things with this series that I don't think they've done before. It was a 9-episode examination of Wanda's grief, and I thought it was just masterfully done. I don't think I've seen them do anything like this in the films, and I like that even, in my opinion, towards the end of, the series, even when they, got big with the scope and brought in action stuff, it was still about that. It was still about her dealing with grief and trauma, and yeah, it's just, I thought it was beautifully done, and I got sort of a little kid thrill out of seeing her finally embody like the Scarlet Witch character, in costume and all that stuff. So I love the way like they brought in small characters like Jimmy and why am I blanking out? Darcy. And I just, and then going back to a few episodes prior, I love that they had moments like with the hospital and looking at the blip again, and from a sort of more personal, ground level perspective. And yeah, I just thought that this was a very fresh look at things, and I'm excited for what it means for the MCU on television. I think I'm finally at long last on board with the MCU if this is the type of thing that they're going to be doing moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. How about you, Nessie? Final thoughts?
Yeah, well, just to bridge off what John said, television is a place for the MCU to explore these smaller stories, even though it doesn't have like the mega budget of all the other films or what have you. And this was an exploration of a love story, which we haven't seen from the MCU before. This was a very different telling of two people's love and devotion for one another that transcended even death. So it was just powerful and beautiful, and also her dealing with the loss of the possibility, of them having that future. It was just a beautiful, bittersweet love story, and also that it opened up the possibilities for future things. I hope to see great things from Wanda in the future. I'd really love to see where her character goes now, that she's quietly processing everything that's happened. I really look forward to seeing that. But the small screen is a great place for the MCU, for Marvel to explore these types of themes that, John was talking about, like really getting to see sort of the boots on the ground for what happens when greater things are going on. So, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Also, I do just want to say, because I didn't say it as a final comment, in Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, all the raves in the world.
Right out of my mouth, my man. You took the words.
Sorry.
Now I'll get to it. So I will touch on this. Vanessa says she hated that people knew about the in-game battles if they watched it on TV. They probably did. Most of the, the story begins a few weeks after everybody gets snapped back. And trust me, everybody in the world was glued to their television that entire time. It was the only topic of conversation to be had. So the fact that people in the world understood what had happened in Endgame is not actually that unrealistic to me.
I mean, just having to get that information out so that people weren't experiencing like mass hysteria when, all of these, everybody came back.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody came back, and just, we saw it in, we saw the devastation that the blip had on people. We saw how, people were in support groups and how families were ruined, families were split up, lives were lost. It's just dealing with that huge emotional hole of not knowing where they're just gone. And so just they would have to have some type of, get that message out so that people weren't freaking the hell out when their loved one just shows up for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could not knowing what had happened to themselves.
Plus, also, I also just think of it in sort of the meta level of we're talking about, a TV show in which people were actually, watching, a projected show on television about that. It's sort of, if you let go of sort of the need for, to follow everything super logically. The fact that they're talking about events as if they watched it on television while watching on television WandaVision. It works for me as a meta kind of commentary on that, even if logically you can't make it work in your head. For me, I don't always need the stuff in my films and TV shows to follow a super logical, route. I think it works as a fun bit of commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just my last thought, John, you said it yourself. Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. I knew Elizabeth Olsen was good. I knew Paul Bettany was great, but this show made me go, God dang, both of them are fantastic actors.
Yeah.
They had to play so many parts, including playing against the type of acting that they were probably trained to do. Like, you had to learn to act like a 50s actor.
Yeah.
I'll give it up for Catherine Hahn too. Yes, she was great. But just the amount of different stuff that both Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany had to do, and be believable, and still be the same character while behaving so differently. Because kudos to both of them, they crushed it. Again, like, this, it's not a perfect story. I don't believe there are perfect stories or perfect movies or TV shows or whatever, but I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 and not bat an eye. It was really good. I agree. Yeah. I think there will be a second season because this was very specifically about this thing.
Yeah.
It's not to say we won't see every single character. They're going to bring back Wanda, of course. They're going to bring back Agatha Harkness. That's why they left her planted in town. Says I know where you are if I need you. They're going to bring back her kids. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought back Spectral Vision.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm certain they will.
In the parting scene between Wanda and Vision, they were like saying their final goodbyes, and there was, we've seen each other again before, so.
Oh yeah.
We've said goodbye before, so chances are we'll say hello again. Yeah. Oh my God, the waterworks.
So good.
Yeah, I'm bad at paraphrasing, but yeah, thanks, John.
And I will just say as, one final thing, which I, need to come back around to. Yes, I am supremely annoyed about the fake out with the whole X-Men thing. The MCU keeps teasing the multiverse, and then they're like, psych. They've got an actual movie coming out with the title, multiverse in it. So like, I hope they're going to make good on it at some point. And we'll see how they do that. But no, like, it doesn't detract from the show for me. I loved the show, but not cool bringing in Evan Peters and having him not be Peter Maximoff from the X-Men film.
Unless they pan it out later somehow, okay, I will forgive it then. But at this point, it does feel like utter betrayal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, the rest of it was so good, I'm not going to dwell on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my final thoughts. So real quick, I don't know what we're doing on HBD next week. Come back and find out the hard way. That group, I will let you know tomorrow. John will figure it out tonight, hopefully.
We could talk about it like right after.
Yeah, I would imagine we will.
I imagine we will.
So yeah, come back. It'll either be I'm guessing it's either going to be Highlander or it might be, and I know that nerd. I think Highlander might be the way we're leaning. I don't know, but I'll let you all know soon. Nessie, you've got a stream this week on Wednesday?
On Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Unspun Yarn. We are talking about
lady.
With that lady right there, yes, and with another lady who is right there in the chat, yes. My co-host Aemy and I are going to have Kelly the Jaded Redhead on officially to talk about maritime misogyny on the high seas for Bleep the Patriarchy episode Bleep Ahoy. So, bleep it, y'all.
Believe it. Right on. John, when is John Webster film coming back, or is that still not fully decided?
It's not fully decided yet. It'll either be next weekend or the weekend after.
Okay.
But just stay tuned. And we already have the episode recorded, so it's basically me and Aemy just goofing around for 90 minutes. So I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. So just stay tuned, and I'll let you guys know when that's dropping.
Okay, and Hax, last but not least,
Yeah.
what have you got coming up? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at HaxDogma or YouTube at HaxDogma. The next thing that I'm going to be working on and working on right now is the breakdown for this finale, thinking, as elaborately as I can about all the possible strings and ties to the future and, what everything really meant, a more intimate form of what we discussed here. And so look for me over on HaxDogma, over on YouTube or Twitter.
Oh, and Dan wants to let you know that he still has the coconut.
Yeah, I know you do, buddy. I know you do.
I am going to lay claim for responsibility if that happens, because I did mention it on the last stream or something, like, please do that, Dan. I'm just begging you, because that was the greatest thing in the world when you did that before.
That's a really excellent question. Aaron wants to know your policy on spoilers, and I'm guessing that's for your Twitter.
So
Twitter
yeah,
or your channel too.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts there. So if something is leaked, if there's like a leak that discusses the next episode or even the entire next episode, I'll never talk about it, never watch it. With Twitter, like, I may talk about certain theories that pop up. More times than not, I'll call out people that like have this like exact theory that just happens to match this exact leak, because I hate that. This is the most superficial superficial thing in the world. And yeah, so I'm ultimately, my policy on spoilers is spoilers bad, but also I think there's also a really interesting way to consider spoilers. Like, you need to know for a fact, like, for instance, my video about William and the Man in Black, that at the time, that wasn't anything that was canon. That was just me making a video. And then because of the thumbnail was the same, 3 weeks later when it was revealed, then I got a flood of people saying that it was, a spoiler thumbnail. When in 3 weeks prior, it wasn't. It was just, theory crafting. So in that sense, I think there's an interesting gray area about spoilers. But yeah, I mean, roll the dice, baby. I don't know.
Well, Aaron, there's your answer.
Yeah.
I think it's a good answer. Also, Hax, your links are in the description, both to Twitter and YouTube. So go give them a follow. Go give them a subscribe. And yeah, cool. John, if we hang out for a minute afterwards, we'll talk about next week. Nessie going to be off next week. I know you got to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the end, everyone. So you know what it is. Until next time, peace and be excellent to each other.